So we're going to take a look at graph analysis now and write down all the stuff that this tells us that we just graphed. So to find the vertex, this is called vertex form for a reason. You know that the negative of that, or the opposite of that, or whatever you would plug into there to make this equal to 0, is the x value, and that's the y value. You know, that's the vertex, the highest or the lowest point. The axis of symmetry is always x equals the x value of the vertex. This is positive, so we know the direction of opening is up. Parabolas, we know, just keep going and going and going in the x direction. So x can be any real number, and you know this. You know that you can take any number, you can add 3 to any number, you can square any number, you can take any number and multiply it by 0.5, and you can take any number and subtract 5 from it. So x can be any number. The y values, however, this curve has a vertex of -3, -5, and it has a direction of opening that's up. So the y values are going to be all the way here except down to -5 and then bounce back up. So the y values will be everything greater than or equal to -5. For the x-intercept, we're going to have to let y equal 0, so let's do that. For the x-intercept, we let y equal 0, so we have y equals 0.5 x plus 3 squared minus 5, and y is 0. I'm going to change 0.5 to a half because my brain calculates it better that way. And then I'm going to bring minus 5 over, so it's plus 5 when you bring it over the equal sign. Then I have to get rid of this fraction. So we know that we multiply both sides by the lowest common denominator, which is 2, so that'll be 10. And 2 times a half is 1, so there's a 1 in front of there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to need to take the square root of both sides. So plus or minus the square root of 10 will equal x plus 3. Actually, let's get rid of the brackets, because when we took the square root, actually, let me write it like this. I'm going to take the square root of both sides, and the square will cancel the square root, so we're left with plus or minus 10, root 10 equals x plus 3, and then when I bring 3 over, it's going to be 3, minus 3 I mean, because that's plus 3 here, minus 3 plus or minus root 10 equals x. And then I put it into my calculator to tell me exactly what those two values are. One would be minus 3 plus the root of 10, and one would be minus 3 minus the root of 10, and I'd have two values. Okay? And I know that I'm going to have two values because when I look at this graph that I graphed earlier, which is right here, I can see that when I go like this, I'm going to cut my x-axis in two places, right? This is eventually going to cut it there and there. Now my y-axis I'm only going to cut once, so I know I'm going to have only one y-intercept. So let's write that down. First I'll just write this here, that my x-intercept is minus 3. X-intercepts are minus 3 plus or minus root 10. So my y-intercept is now y-intercept. I let x equal 0. So let me rewrite my equation. So I have y equals 1/2 0 plus 3 squared minus 5, which is 1/2. That's 3 squared, which is 9. And half of 9 is 4.5. And 4.5 minus 5 is minus 1/2. So when x is 0, y is minus 1/2. Let's see. So that looks like it makes sense, because here for my graph, if this kept continuing, when x was 0, y would be minus 1/2. That totally is in line with where that was going. Excellent. Now, let's take a look at, I should have put them here, I just didn't think I was going to have enough room with that one. So now I need to talk about what the transformations are on y equals x squared. So what does that mean? That means what did I shift, right? Moving with the same shape, right, left, up, and down. So the transformation for that we call a translation. Translation. And then we have stretch or compress. And then we have possible reflection. Those are the three kinds of transformations. So here there's no negative, so there was no reflection. The stretch, we actually have a compression, because it compression to half, right? And then the translations were 3 left and 5 down. So there's 3 things to write. 3 left and 5 down. Do we have a max or a minimum? Well, this curve is concave up, and for concave up curves, our vertex is the minimum point. And that minimum occurs at what value? When they say that, what they mean is what y value. So the minimum occurs at this y value, and it occurs when x equals -3. So basically, it's just another way of writing the vertex. The minimum value occurs at y value -5, and that occurs when x is -3. So that's what the graphing analysis will look like.